in a season, so I'm sure these guys probably have a lot of experience playing against each other. Let's take a look at the bans, see where we're going to be playing in this match, and who's going to ban what.
So we'll take a look at where we're going to go. Coastline and Border are unavailable to us, so that means that we won't see Border again. Unfortunately, we will not have the double header. Villa is off the board too, which is a bit unfortunate. I was kind of hoping to see Villa again. We've seen it twice now. We saw it played once yesterday. We saw it played once in North America. Fingers crossed possibly for the new clubhouse, but it gets dispatched, and we are going to go to Oregon between these two, which will be very interesting with Vitality on defense and Supremacy starting on attack.
Yeah, and I think on Oregon, Vitality are going to be happy they're starting on defense. The way that they tend to play, Oregon's one of those maps where you really need to manage your time correctly. Unlike Border, I feel like or Consulate, for example, those are a little bit more time dynamic. But here you've got a situation where you're stuck in a row, and you have to execute certain things by certain time frames. And there's some cases on Border and Consulate, my reference maps, where that's true as well, like Consulate Basement. But there's I think an ever-present time management thought process that has to go into the attacking side, and Vitality, as a team, as we all know, tend to be a little bit slower. Like you said, measure twice, cut once, and it's worked for them, but it's not the best mentality for this map.
They're a very methodical team, playing against Supremacy, who can be quite aggressive. Actually, Supremacy losing one of their most aggressive players, which was Alive, who is now playing on Mocket. We just saw him there. And they've had to rely a bit more on some broader fragging potential on Supremacy, and have come close to victory, but haven't really been able to find it just yet. Oregon is going to be an interesting match because Vitality is a team as a whole that are very comfortable playing on sites that have never really been the de facto choices.
Yes.
We've seen it on Border, we've seen it on Coastline, obviously not on Consulate. We've seen it on Bank, and I'm assuming we're probably going to see it on Oregon as well now, because if you win two of your defenses, you got to go to Tower or to Kitchen. We'll bring up the community vote for you, by the way, just so you can see how you expect this one to go. 72 to 28, so a bit more even than the match we just saw.
Certainly, yeah, and I think the team with more experience and more notoriety in the community is the one to win out on that. 72% for Vitality, that to me makes a whole lot of sense. Supremacy, on the other hand, have yet to really prove themselves as a squad, so that could be what they do here today, as Vitality have been playing pretty well. Also, there's still some mistakes they have to shore up, some holes they need to iron out.
Vitality also looking like the best French team at the moment, at least in terms of statistics. Supremacy played Millennium, if I recall correctly, on Playday number 2, and they didn't get quite as close as I think they would have liked to. It was a 6-3, if I recall correctly, for Millennium in place of Supremacy. So let's see if they can get a little bit closer and possibly even get their first victory today, because I believe, like Mocket, they're still looking for their first win.
I believe so as well. Yeah, they didn't lose against Penta just now. They haven't won any of the other matches in the season so far. So yeah, they're not just looking for the first win. They're at a pretty heavy round differential deficit. They're low down there at -11 right now. So it's not looking great for them. But on the other hand, with this match, we should get everyone soon. And Oregon as a map, I think. It's gonna be really interesting to watch, if I'm being honest, because I don't know what kind of changes Vitality have brought on as compared to some of their older stuff, and we have seen them start to speed up in most recent times, but we haven't seen like a hard shift in their style of play. And again, I referenced that Oregon as a map, you really need to put a lot of emphasis on managing your time. Less so when you get to that third site, Tower or Kitchen. Those are very different. How they work to top floor basement, which are a little bit more streamlined, but something they're going to have to think about throughout the match as we load into it. Again, for Oregon.
Now, of course, what is going to make and break Oregon will be the operator bans here, not the map bans. I'm so used to saying map bans, because the only bans that we ever dealt with.
They used to be the most influential ones, and now that's taken a huge shift. Smaller map pool, and the addition of this op ban phase, it's probably the most important thing in this new season.
Ying is going to be first ban, which means that a Hibana ban is still open for Supremacy. And of course, banning Hibana makes the way that this map plays out fundamentally different from any other operator. Can't get hatches, can't get mirror windows, and there we go. Supremacy will take Hibana out, which will be... It always leads to a very interesting matchup here.
Can I just say I'm not happy about that ban? The truth is, when you get someone like Habana gone or Thermite gone, yes, okay, interesting, definitely. It changes the way the match is played.
Man.
Oh,
Supremacy
boy.
single-handedly sinking the usual
So,
Oregon meta.
so here's the reason why this upsets me, right? Yes, it usually makes for more interesting matches, but it also means that we see sloppiness. It really just brings into play sloppiness because this is still a new system.
Yes.
And it's going to take experience and time and learning for these squads to figure out how to play with a Habana and a Mira band on Oregon. But watching them learn, it can be really, really tedious. And I'm hopeful, really hopeful, that the reason Supremacy brought those bans in was because their practice on this mentality, their practice on these ops being banned on Oregon, and they have some strategies, some really awesome stuff to show us here. It could be, again, I'm referencing this, it could be similar to the SK-EG match, where SK were deliberately sabotaging the attack side, as much as Supremacy is deliberately sabotaging both sides.
So with these two teams going at it, we'll enter the 6th pick phase. We've seen this a couple times, and I think that people are going to take this in the wrong way. So pardon me if you do, but the teams that are less practiced and less experienced are far more likely to upend the typical system by banning the more commonly used operators. Supremacy is a team that likely has fewer strats on this site and on this map than Vitality. They probably don't have the same level of sophistication in their calls and their ability to make adaptations on the fly that we see out of Vitality. So what's a way for them possibly to get a leg up here? Ban 2 of the most commonly used operators in strategies and force Vitality when they're on attack to have to essentially play into Supremacy's game.
Yeah, it's bringing their opponent down to, well, to your level. And
A great equalizer.
And I think, yeah, you could even, objectively, you could say that Supremacy is the less experienced team in this matchup.
There's no question.
There's no question about that. There's no debate to be had there. You could just look at the time that these squads have been together and been playing in Pro League. So it's a smart move from Supremacy. But again, I sincerely hope that they are well versed in this style of play, because it is something that can be incredibly tedious when it's just a Hail Mary to try and equalize.
Yeah, and like we said, it can lead to very sloppy gunplay because a lot of these teams are not, over the last couple weeks, anywhere near well versed enough to know how to execute.
It's just too new.
It's just too new. And I mean, maybe this is something where in week 10, week 11, week 12, teams are very accustomed to dealing without one or both hard breachers. Maybe they're accustomed to trying to hold a site without a Mira quite easily, or without a smoke, or without an echo, etc. But we're not quite there yet.
I have to imagine by the end of this season, you know, going into the next season, teams are definitely going to be used to it. I sincerely, you know, the op-ban phase is definitely, from my understanding, it's going to be here to stay. You know, it's going to be part of this for a long, long time. So every squad's going to have to get used to that over time.
Now, for Supremacy, what we're seeing out of their attack right now is they've been able to put some pressure into Armory and realize that there's nobody really over on that side of the building for the time being. They've opened up all of Meeting Hall and are now looking to see if there's a possible pinch or even a roamer in there. But no, there isn't. The Buck positioned underneath that class or that closet wall will begin to work away to try and take care of those bandit charges and dreading a possible push through Kitchen. There's nobody from the kitchen to push at the moment. It looked like it was Spark, the Valkyrie, who's currently situated in Meeting Hall. That could go for the Wombo combo with Rafael as they both decide to go in. A great shot from Spark through the wall. Crisco is gone, and it's K6 who will now need to wander down. But before the Buck fell, they got the bandit charges, and as you can hear, easily for Supremacy to get that closet wall.
That's an important part of control that Supremacy have established, and sacrificing one player for it isn't that bad. The one thing that Supremacy has to keep in mind is they must maintain control over their flank, which is what K6 is going to be doing there from the Armory. Now, there is no flank right now happening from Vitality, but they still have players in a position to do so. They're relying a lot on the vertical control, and they still have their gas canisters in Zephyr over in the B bomb site, so the generator plant can still be denied. There's also a Maestro, which potentially has a camera in the right position to deny that plant, but we can't quite tell yet.
And it looks like Dijus could get caught by the Maestro of Bibu, but of course breaking this window is going to make some noise. But it doesn't look like the Thatcher knows. He very quickly pivots and gets a couple shots from that L85 off. K6 eliminates Rafael, but Zafir able to down Anthrax with the Toxic Babes. It's an ironic name to die to the gas. Spark eliminating Alfama will be the second kill for the Valkyrie, and Supremacy only has 2 left. Make that one as Dijus falls. K6 holding control of White Stairs. He'll get the Legion, but under fire from 2 separate angles. And a shotgun blast to the chest from the smoke of Zafir. Seal round number 1 in the books for Vitality. Zafir lighting him up. Very strange that SMG-11 wasn't able to take care of him in that position, but the shotgun there is all reliable.
Yeah, Zafir really one of the standouts in that round. You could see clearly that Vitality had a heavy roam presence, and they weren't putting too much emphasis on holding the actual site. So Zafir's ability to do that solo was very admirable. You can see he's actually going to rotate players. Brid's going to be playing Smoke now. We see this a lot, actually, in the newer age of Pro League from various teams where the operator selection isn't as stale as it used to be player by player.
Yeah, and the fluidity is great, and this is something that you and I actually touched on in private, was that we're kind of moving in, especially with operator bans, to more of an era of flex players. There isn't as routine you are the 2 entries, you are the 2 support. There's a lot more fluidity between these teams.
We've been there actually for a long time now. As much as it's not as obvious, I remember at Gamescom when I was walking around, I was interviewing all the teams, and I was like, hey, so how do you see yourself as a player? How does your team see themselves as overall strategy? And every single team and every single player I talked to said, oh, I'm a flex player. I flex. Oh yeah, our strategy is to be as flexible as possible. There was not a single team that thought they weren't a flex squad. So, you know, as much as the thought process has been there for a long time, even before Gamescom, it's starting to be perfected by a lot of these squads. In fact, I'd say many of them.
And I think that's really important. And role swaps are vital for a team. You know, when you used to play, how often would you say there was somebody who mained operators? You really
it was everything all the same all the time.
You know, there's what's the most common? The Ash Jaeger mains, probably dating back is the most I guess memorable of the potential mained operators, and now that doesn't really exist anymore because there needs to be that depth among your team, and it's part of why we just saw Penta be able to stick it out, is because they've got players like Pengu who can play, you know, a dozen operators in the course of, you know, a 1 best of 3 or 1 best of 5.
Yeah, and when you have a player who can play, I've talked about this before. Real quick, if you want some advice, if you're thinking trying to get into Pro League, Challenger League, any form of competition really, don't be that guy who picks 2 operators and plays them all the time. That can work for ranked, and you know, sometimes you can get away with that, I guess. But if you want to get onto a pro team, any sort of competitive team, squads look to pick up versatile players who are capable of filling any role that is necessary. Have a professionalism, try to get adept at a role, but also be able to rotate whenever necessary.
And that is absolutely critical. Rafael, speaking of ability to rotate, we're probably going to have to see some from Supremacy here, as they have 3 bodies on back tower right now. The inability to hit the drone, though, of Pulse, that is unlucky for Rafael. He's playing on that rear stage, and by the back tower was able to see 3 members of Supremacy, so they at least know where they're stacking up, as Supremacy have managed to open up all of that meeting hall attic, and they're going to get the first kill. It's going to be on the Bibu of the Legion, who's on the run, and they'll quickly add to that as K6 will pick up another now. That's Rafael down, and rather with him and Dijus, and now Alfalma. So 3 kills for Supremacy, 3 separate operators able to get all those. Spark is gone, and now you've got a 5v2 with just an Echo and a Smoke remaining on site. 2 good operators to have on site, but at the same time, you have a very, very poor disadvantage in terms of numbers.
Yeah. So Vitality, not in a great position, you could say that. And it's all thanks to a well-coordinated collapse onto the roamers inside of Meeting Hall. Lack of a mirror window going to make Zafir's job really quite difficult. He still has those yokais, so he could still deny the plant, but there's a whole minute for Supremacy to work with, and they still have their smokes well in hand. So at any moment, the attack could come out, and there's not a whole lot Vitality can do about it. Here come the firebolts and the smokes. You see Zafir trying to deny one of them, but unsuccessful in that endeavor. The gas canisters, though, will hit Anthrax. The irony setting in doubly for this round. And from behind, Crisco's able to finish off Brid. That's actually a trade, though, so it's going to leave Zephyr in a 1 versus 4. The Yokai drone goes through the drop down, clearly unintended. Zephyr could have denied the plant all the while just by shooting, but will finally at least get Anthrax as he peeks around the corner. But in a 1 versus 3, in this situation, basically unwinnable. It would be one of the most incredible clutches we've seen in a while, and given how Zephyr is playing it, being spotted by the drone, dodging the nades, there's not a whole lot of opportunity here. Now, in fact, moving away from the diffuser, he's going to get a nice shot there on the diffuse, but it's unlikely he's going to get the final 2 as he moves his way up these laundry stairs, goes for the spray through the wall, looking for the fights, but Supremacy's just not having it. They're wasting time. They don't need to take any of these fights, and they're going to actually give away Alfalma, but it's not possible for the defuse to come out, so it's going to be an attack win based on time alone.
3 low-impact frags for the Echo there. Very close to being able to clutch it in terms of body count, but the clock was his undoing, and there was a point where I think even when he killed the Capitao, there was no time at that point onward for him to be able to stick the disable whatsoever onto the plan. And I mean, Supremacy, it doesn't really matter if Supremacy tosses all 4 of their operators at that point in to their death, because the clock is what's going to matter more. So for Supremacy, though, it was a very good push onto Meeting Hall. I really liked the way that they were able to isolate the Pulse and then push in and take care of both Bibu and Rafal. And when that point went on, it looked like Spark had pushed up as the Bandit and then got dispatched too. So essentially 3 members of Vitality all trying to cover one another, and their coverage wasn't anywhere near good enough to be able to stop the push from Supremacy.
Because they were all covering the wrong lanes at the wrong moments, and that's really quite that simple. Good timing from Supremacy. You could chalk it up to luck, you could chalk it up to good information and gathering by Supremacy, and good focus of all 5 of their players being placed on the job of, hey, let's clear Meeting Hall and Attic. So well done to them, and also admirable time management in that round, allowing them a lot of flexibility when they went to the final push. Now, another attempt at the basement here from Vitality, which stands to reason given that they were successful in the defensive dorms and we have this new 3-site rotation, so not going to be able to go anywhere other than basement or kitchen and tower, which I'm not even going to say it. I think you all can make that that math in your head. It's not that complicated. Vitality going to be putting a lot of emphasis in Meeting Hall yet again, which stands to reason, I guess, but it mostly comes down to their timing here. They need to be able to play off of each other as defenders more effectively than they had in the previous round.
Yeah, they need to rely on each other a lot more. I don't think they were expecting as quick of a snap of the fingers of Supremacy, because they were able to strike. Supremacy was able to strike and get those 3 kills without Vitality being able to get a rotate back to site or even try to kill more time. Now, mind you, with the presence that they have in Meeting Hall, I think their job is not necessarily to try and kill time, but also to try and pick people off as they try to feed off of each other. And that's what the Pulse and Bibu were tasked to do. You've got a Pulse in there to relay information. You've got Bibu who can throw down those goo mines as to where they're pushing from to get maximum value out of the goo traps. And you know, possibly get a pick or 2 as we'd seen in the first round. Not really the case in that second round. And it looks like Supremacy is going to stack up once again on that back tower, very similar to they have for the first 2 rounds.
It's an interesting strategy here from Supremacy, and they're going to get that attic open despite Spark trying to bandit trick. Unsuccessful in the endeavor, but still on the position. The nade will eventually come out from Crix, a little bit delayed, and is actually going to completely miss. But it will prompt Spark to peek, and he will get the kill onto Dejus. So Anthrax refragging, Crisco getting his second one, and Vitality now at a man deficit. But it was thanks to Smart that we don't have a complete one-sided clear here for Supremacy. But at the same time, this is reminiscent of the previous round, very much so, where Vitality incapable of holding on to Meeting Hall, and Supremacy doing a really good job of clearing out those roamers thanks to excellent information gathering and execution alike.
Yeah, that was I really liked what they did there, able to stack up a lot of bodies in one area. And this is really one thing that Supremacy keeps doing, is it's this all-in push. They put everybody together, and they know that because they're in the back tower, they're not exposed. They're not really in a position where they can get, you know, flanked, where they can get run up on. And because of this, they're able to just use their numbers advantage and get a kill or 2, and that's exactly what's happened so far.
It's the isolation execution, and we see it a lot of the time on Oregon. even on the main lobby, it's easy to do, but it's it's not something that every team likes to commit themselves to. There's less certainty to it, less surety when you actually go for the final push. But I think the way that Supremacy are handling it is really, really. It's clearly working out for them, and I think it's rightfully so.
The big issue here now is there are 2 Yokais in play as well as the smokes, and this will be the undoing potentially of Supremacy. Rafael pushes up to try and get a C4 off. He will get shredded from Alfama. The Capital watching the hatch from above, and the Buck will absorb some shots from the shotgun of Brid. He'll take out Crisco. Can Zafir get this defuse off? He's running out of time. He will hit the Thermite twice now. Thermite has just 7 seconds to go, and as long as he can get it in play, yes, he should be able to. Brid will jump up, and the Echo Drone in conjunction. A big double kill from Brid. 3 kills for him on the round, and the Smoke being the unsung hero in great coordination with the Yokai bursts. That's Vitality able to retake the lead.
Great defense there. A lot of it coming down to the time management. Also, it looked like Supremacy didn't have the same certainty that they did in the previous round, where they cleared out the meeting hall and established such a lead that they were confident in themselves, the ability to take the site and plant the diffuser. In this round, they were a lot slower, and a lot of the tools that are necessary to deny a diffuse plant were better utilized by Vitality as well. The gas canisters delaying more efficiently, the Yokai drone specifically in a clutch position that time, able to deny the diffuse plant, and Brid, right moment, right place, good opportunity, and managed to push out, get a 3K overall in the round, almost a 4K if the round hadn't ended on time alone.
Yeah, it looked like there was going to be a drop there. Also would have been a low impact, though, because he'd already gotten the bomb down at that point. But still, that's nice. That's pretty nice stat padding.
It's a good job for
them. One thing that I've noted about a number of teams, and this is no different with the way Supremacy played that, is usually once there's about 45 seconds left, IQ is no longer in hunt for gadgets mode. She is in kill things mode. And because of this, we find a lot of Echoes can go unchecked if they play really reserved with the way that their Yokai drones are. Some teams will use Yokai, very far off site to, potentially scout for information. Sometimes they'll use them on site. Sometimes they'll even hold onto a pocket Yokai, just in case. The way we saw Vitality do it was they kept them down, not on the ceiling. And the IQ at that point was a little too distracting to possibly figure out where the Yokais were, and ultimately that ended up being the major demise for Supremacy.
Yeah, and I know it sounds weird, but in Siege you only have 2 hands, right? Same as in real life, and you can only do so many things, basically is what I'm getting at here. And it's the same reason, Yokai got his, Echo got his buff, an extra Yokai drone. It's a big buff, sure, but it's not game breaking or anything like that, because he can still only control one of them at a time.
Right.
He can only position one of them at a time. He can only shoot you with one of them at a time. So yeah, there's only so much one individual player can do, and an IQ, like you said, in the last couple seconds, especially when the push is coming out, usually needs to fulfill a role of hold this flank, or push in here and hit this nade, and there's a lot of things you have to focus on. Now, in this round, you can see Supremacy executing the same way they've been executing so far throughout the match. Take control over tower and push in that way. Push into attic. Once you've got attic control, either get meeting hall or just go directly for master.
And they managed to take that one wall inside of tower all the way into the top of attic, and this is something that they did the last time they attacked dorms. Now, it wasn't as successful as they needed to be because that attic pressure wasn't so important for Vitality to worry about at all. They were in a position where they could almost ignore the push in through attic and just largely focus on the push from the top of white stairs, which is ultimately where Supremacy got funneled in round number 1.
So I think it's actually a graphical bug, but I actually really like that we can see all these electronics through the wall. Maybe not the positional markers, but it's nice to see them. And speaking of electronics, the Bandit will deny the
This would actually be great if it was permanent.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. It was it's great to see it, and I don't see why not. Not the distance marker, obviously.
Well, they're gone. They're gone.
The highlight would be cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Thermite denied there on the wall. That's huge. And Spark will also get Crisco. So very important frag for Vitality as well as utility denial. Dejuz is able to refrag, so a little bit of an equalization there, but it's still definitely going to favor Vitality as the round continues to play out.
Yeah, and absolutely. You lose a buck, too. A buck for a Bandit. I'll take the buck any day of the week. Who's looking to try and see if he can possibly get a nice shot in through the window of kids' dorms, but can't connect.
Especially considering the Bandit's already done his job. All the Thermite charges are all expended, so there's no way for Supremacy to get in through the closet wall any longer.
Absolutely, and the Buck, of course, could still possibly put pressure from below. Spark, who has done an excellent job at this Valkyrie so far, is able to pick up his second kill. That's K6 down, and the IQ has fallen off, which IQ not that instrumental at this point in the round. Of course, there will be Legion traps to take care of, but this pace that they're going to have over the next 20 seconds or so is really going to be in a position where you're not really looking for traps to shoot them at this time. Alfama will get one of the asphyxiating bolts in. Dejus will pick up his second kill, this time on a Sparks, who himself had 2 kills on this round. Brid playing on White Stairs will look to see if Dejus peeks in, and he will. And that's easy for Brid. He'll pick up his second. A clay pigeon right from the windows. Where is Alfama? He's on White Stairs, and Bibu there waiting as Maestro able to gun him down as Bibu gets down in the process, but doesn't really matter. And that will be Vitality picking up their third, winning on every site that they've played so far. They've lost once on Laundry. Where are they going to go now? Because the 2 sites that they like are locked.
They're going to have to force them, or well, they'll be forced into either tower or kitchen. Obviously not the best situation any longer, but this is the type of thing that as time goes on, it's, it'll be talked about less and less and less, and focused on, I think, by the teams, and they'll figure out which site they prefer between tower and kitchen. A lot of the teams this season so far opting for tower. In this case, Vitality going to opt for kitchen, and either one works really, and the meta will develop or continue to develop on those sites. It's just something that they're just now being forced to do, which means they're just now going to have to learn. And I think that's kind of the story of this season really is. There's so much new stuff. A lot of teams are being kind of just shocked by all the new things they have to adapt to.
I've said this many times, but I think this is why we are seeing teams typically go with the maps that they know the most, and that's just because there's a lot to learn. And when you add to that trying to learn new maps with new site rotations, it can be a bit too onerous for certain teams. You've got teams trying to play and prepare for DreamHack Valencia. You've got teams that are currently competing in other regional tournaments. You've got teams that are competing now in Pro League and trying to get ready for their Pro League matches on an accelerated schedule because of these Super Weeks. Then you've got the Paris Major qualifiers. Oh yeah, we do 5 attack, 5 defense. Oh yeah, we have operator bans. There's so much for teams to have to overcome in this particular season alone. I don't particularly envy them. I know it's exciting, and I know that certain teams have expressed their excitement at how much they have to adapt to, but it's still an awful lot to work on.
From experience, I could say that a huge dimension shift like this is really, it can shatter your perspective of the game. And I think, similar to you, I don't envy either of these teams or any of these teams in Pro League for the amount of work they're going to have to put into this season. But what it does mean, and I'm still firm on this position, next season, maybe the second half of this season, we're going to see it make CG Sports better. I think it's going to turn it into a superior game to watch and even to play when it comes to the esports side of things.
Oh, I think unequivocally, and that's the one thing is that for a lot of these teams, this is like a new start in Pro League for a lot of them because there is such this dimensional shift that's been happening.
So Brid, I love this strategy here, and Spark going to supplement it with a kill onto K6, a run out from elsewhere to deny the pressure onto these 2 Vitality players playing in Cafeteria. Typically on this site, Cafeteria is ignored, treated as a position that's unplayable for the defense, but Vitality not seeing that mentality. And the shield play, we've seen a lot of really great shields in Pro League in this season in particular. In previous seasons, shields were just ignored. You wouldn't bring them on defense. Here, they're actually relevant, and I really appreciate that from Vitality and other teams that like them.
Oh, Spark will pick up a big kill on Alfama, and Brid will jump in now, and this is full frontal offense from Vitality as they find themselves in a 5v2. And just as the Buck of Crisco repels in, Bibu is there to shred him with the LMG, and barring a miracle from the Thermite of Anthrax, currently sitting in small tower, looking all the way down the hallway, he's going to have to ace clutch here, no problem, right? If not, then it'll be a 4-1 split for Vitality at the first half, which is a pretty staggering lead to take.
As I like to say, this would be one of the most incredible clutches in Pro League. In this situation, it's really kind of unwinnable, but who knows? He's going to be playing the slow game, as you can surmise for yourself. He's He's analyzing his options. You know, he's got plenty of time. I want to say good time management from Supremacy, but really it was just Vitality shred them before they could get into good position to execute. Flashbang going to fall a little bit short, and that's the round over. Spark, the final kill there, heading his stats up a little bit, and Vitality take the half 4-1. A very decisive half for them on defense, and the sort of half that you look at, you speculate, you think to yourself, is this going to give them such an advantage in terms of morale leading into the second half, or was it just because of that side and we'll see this equalize? Who knows?
I mean, they're winning defenses without Mira, but also they're going to have to now win attack without Hibana. So it's very interesting as, you know, the way it goes back and forth. I don't think the Ying was a particularly crucial ban for them. Obviously, Vitality doesn't bring a lot of Ying. This is likely a targeted ban towards Supremacy, and it's gonna be amazing to watch this. Now, construction site, 2 junkyards, or 3 junkyard rather, for Vitality would suggest that they're likely going to try to push into that normal main lobby, maybe take meeting hall, and then have the Monty work his way down alone in construction. I'm not entirely certain, but interesting tools available. That Monty doesn't last too long because in the dying seconds of the 6th pick, we'll see a Capitao get flexed onto rather than the Monty. So they've opted to go with a bit of a different strategy, maybe just simply to try and play mind games with Supremacy, because if you think there's a shield on the board, you might stagger your defense a little bit differently than, you know, there's not.
Yeah, because you have to be able to, with a shield in play, you need to either be capable of falling back or have the perfect crossfire established. And oftentimes, having the perfect crossfire, not exactly easy.
Easier said than done, would you say?
Yeah, easier said than done. There are some examples of built-into map perfect crossfire situations. I always like to reference it, but I'm going to do it again. The top floor between white stairs and dorms, you know, that's a good example of the perfect natural crossfire that you have inherent to defense. But those aren't as common as you would expect in a game like Siege. The angle play, of course, being one of the biggest parts of the game, and something that shields are uniquely designed to counter. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays out moving forward. But of course, the Blackbeard, the closest thing we have to a shield in this round.
Now, I really liked what we just saw there, and we got to see the first-hand perspective of what Anthrax did. He tossed a cam in blue and also boarded up the doorway. That's not something that you're usually going to do on most defenses of Oregon. You got to think if they think there's a Monty coming through, a potential construction rush, that's a really good strategy there, because the moment you hear that doorway break, you've got somebody playing far back enough that they're going to be able to potentially have that camera in there. So very interesting. The Monty was flexed off of 2 for the 6th, if you recall correctly. So to Supremacy, they think there might be a Monty on the board, but they've got a Capitao instead.
Yeah. I think a good play from Vitality to do that, because when you're dealing with a basement a defense, and of course Vitality couldn't be sure that they would be dealing with a basement defense,
right?
Then Capitao is one of your most useful operators. And a shield, specifically a Monty, can be useful, but he's not the most relevant op to bring on this attack unless you are attacking from the basement, and in that case I would just bring Blitz in that situation.
Yeah, and Blitz does typically see more play on Oregon because of how applicable he can be to either the front or the back of the site, whether you're attacking laundry room or whether you're attacking the supply room. Now, you saw earlier Crisco took a lot of damage as Vitality were watching the drone holes intently for where Supremacy was playing inside a meeting. You see the hatch will get blown inside of main lobby, and boom goes the dynamite, the Texan dynamite rather, from the thermite.
And because of that now, the attack from Vitality going to be helped a lot here. It's interesting actually that we don't have a, excuse me, it's not interesting. Because of that ban, it's going to force Vitality to spend a lot more time on the clear. You know, that's something we talked about earlier, is, you know, having those operator bans exist means that the intrigue of, like, or not the intrigue rather, but the interesting things about the match aren't based on necessarily what happens in the round, but more about what happens in the out-ban phase.
A bit of a miscue as you just saw the Sophia concuss the Capitao of Zafir as he goes down to try and take out the Valkyrie Cameron. Mission accomplished. They'll manage to get it.
And that's very important, but the ADSs are going to catch those gas or smoke grenades, which means Vitality won't have as much cover as they want when they go for the final push. Still 2 on Zafir, so at any point, Capitao can apply the pressure that is necessary to isolate these defenders, but in a 5 versus 5 with only 30 seconds on the round, and the actual final push just now starting to come out. This is still anyone's game. Zafir, good firebolt placement, will get Alfama as he's sitting in the corner. The diffuser plant going down. Bibu trying to cover, but the C4 not to be covered. Anthrax, well-placed utility there. And still gas canisters, I think, in hand for the defense. But as DeJuice pushes up, Raphael will catch him. Spark gets one, and Raphael a second. K6 now the final defender, but he's got a positional advantage. However, he's not able to utilize it as Spark in the main lobby will shut him down. So, good attack from Vitality.
Supremacy are just being completely overwhelmed here. You allowed the Blackbeard to stay upstairs, completely unaware for Supremacy that there was even somebody hanging out up there, watching the flank, and the Bandit wasn't able to get back to site, putting Vitality on match point, and what has been a pretty quick match, all things considered. Not usually something you hear us say when Vitality is playing in particular. Now, for Vitality, they're actually going to roll with the exact same lineup. Interesting to see if they would 6th pick the Capitao out for the Montaigne to give us that wonderful bookend to the first round, but they're going to be attacking upstairs on kids' dorms. Always a good opportunity to bring smoke here, and the Blackbeard, as always, is going to be so powerful.
I don't see anything wrong with the lineups from either squad, given the operator bans. No surprises either, really.
Everybody locked in from Vitality. As for Supremacy, that Crisco is going to be, I would say, probably your most important operator in these circumstances. Whether you're going to play the Pulse in a situation to read off of a push from Armory or from Attic, or whether you're going to have the Pulse downstairs, as we see so typically underneath the big window to try and disrupt a plant, that is going to be very important. But this has been a really interesting match to try to break down and analyze, because even on defense, Vitality playing aggressively inside of meeting, or Vitality playing in a roaming position where Supremacy were able to gain a little bit of ground, but they haven't been able to seal the deal in the dying seconds of a round, and Vitality has actually excelled in those final 30 seconds, winning almost every engagement that we've seen as rounds come to a conclusion.
We've talked about how slow Vitality can be on attack, and I think throughout this season, we're only just getting started. We've only seen them play 3 times now, but at the same time, they've been getting faster and faster as they develop their synergy. I think it's you know, an issue they've been working on, because as much as their measure twice, cut once, you know, mentality can work, other teams also do that. They just do it faster, and I think that's something Vitality's been working on. I think it's something they've been getting better at, and I think the time management for Vitality is less of a conversation than it used to be, as is clear by the way they've been playing so far on defense. Now, we're not, forgive me for being blunt, but seemingly we're not going to see many Vitality attack rounds, so we might not be able to analyze their attacking side very much, but at least we'll get to see them attack on 2 sides, possibly 3, as this continues to play out.
I mean, there's a very real possibility that we can see Supremacy take this round. I would.
True.
The only reason why I would be a little bit bullish on their chances, or that I haven't really seen anything that's given me a lot of confidence to say, yeah, I think Supremacy is going to be able to win this one.
There's also the fact that on that last round we just saw, Vitality, you know, they didn't have the Hibana because she's banned, and they efficiently executed a main lobby take. Main lobby takes are hard to do without a Hibana because you have to isolate the main lobby before you can get that drop down open, and the drop down being open makes it easier to isolate the main lobby. So it's a lot of complication there, but Vitality are efficient in making that happen, and I think that's one of the traits, you know, their ability to see the issues, isolate them, and execute onto them. You know, they're good at problem solving, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Very early phone call there to try and freeze everybody in place, as the drones can also pick up on their location from the audio of the phones, and you know how high of a propensity Vitality has to go onto those drones throughout any single point in the round. But Vitality will need to rotate themselves, as they were inside of that small tower. You're able to find out exactly where Supremacy is playing. It did look like they have established where both the Jaeger and the Pulse are inside a kitchen, and Vitality now has a lot of bodies stacked up on the kids' dorms windows. Now, if they don't know that there's somebody inside of kitchen, which is purely speculative on our part, this could be disastrous, because one run out could take out 2 of the repellers from Vitality.
There's also K6 at the bottom of the main tower stairs, waiting patiently for his opportunity. There's a drone ready to catch him on the attempted flank, and it seems that Vitality is aware of his position. But all of this happening over by tower, and the site is still at dorms, and we've only got 30 4 seconds left in the round. So, and there you go. Vitality going to spot out K6 as he pushes up, and Brit gets a very easy kill. So full coverage from the Vitality attack despite the lack of time. Alfama going to get Raphael, but Bibu refrags onto Alfama. Crisco with the C4 from below. Spark gets Deju, so back and forth, but Supremacy still at the disadvantage, now equalized by Crisco's great play from Pulse. A push from Brit in a good position, gets marks from his teammates, information in his favor. He will secure that kill, but so little time in the round. And it's all up to the Valkyrie now. Anthrax from below. Will he get the mark? Yes, he will, and he will win the round if it successfully hits the player. It does. Supremacy keep themselves alive. What a C4 from Anthrax. Good information from Supremacy. And they did manage to get the win, but it was so close.
They eked that one out with the Valkyrie downstairs. The Pulse looked to be in that position down in the kitchen for quite a while, but still a really good read from Supremacy. And the fact that there wasn't the Valkyrie camera destroyed earlier on is what made that whole thing possible. You lose that information, you've got to keep the Valkyrie up top, at which point Vitality's got the numbers on you. Supremacy is not probably going to be able to withstand that 1v2, and then this would have been Vitality taking it home. So Supremacy, great round. They were able to lock it out even though they took some early casualties. That was that confidence that we said about the team. They had the confidence that Anthrax was going to be able to pull through, and pull through he did. For Vitality, you got to spend a little bit more time droning downstairs. For a team that is usually as ruthless at gathering that information, it seemed a bit interesting that they didn't think that they thought that they'd gotten everybody from Supremacy playing on the main floor. And unless there was a late rotate from the Valkyrie, which we not necessarily were able to see, it was a bit of sloppiness from them.
And you know, sloppiness is forgivable, and I think that you could say easily for that last round there was some on both squads.
Yes.
But odd placements of a lot of utility, like barbed wire, for example. The ability for Brit to so easily walk his way into sight. There were a lot of confusing mistakes made by both squads. Too many to analyze, but. It just seems like Vitality is always in the power play position. As much as Supremacy won that last round, they, like you said, I think you said it perfectly, they eked it out. They barely managed to get that. And it was due to utility play. And that's something that Supremacy's excelled at throughout the match. But Vitality just seem more lethal. It seems every time we have a Vitality member in a fight, they're always pushing that extra pedal down to get the advantage. And I just don't see, it doesn't feel like Supremacy has their hands on the controls right now, is really what I'm trying to say. They don't seem engaged in the match.
The thing with Supremacy is that they've got some pretty good shots on the team. K6 in particular is somebody who's impressed us in matches that we've watched in the past with his ability to hit almost every single shot with ease. He's kind of struggled to find his footing today. All of Supremacy have. In fact, when the scoreboard was up, just in terms of raw fragging potential, they're very, very close. Take a look at that. 4's bookending them with the 3s in the middle. It's a nice 4-3-3-3-4 sandwich that's going on right there right now. But nobody on the team has really taken hold and really jumped up. Now, you can say that this is partially because of the way that Vitality plays. They never really put you in a position where one person can run roughshod over them just because of how meticulous they are with that droning, as we've talked about so many times. But you need to have Supremacy waking up. Their shooters need to wake up to land these shots because, as you pointed out, Supremacy, they're just losing their gunfights on too many occasions, even when in winnable positions.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Strategically, Supremacy is not that bad. They've been positioning themselves all right. You know, not the most amazing advanced strategies we've ever seen, but definitely pro league level. They just, every time they get into a fight, it seems like they can't win it, no matter what the situation is. Now, Raphael, finally gonna work his way up to Meeting Hall. Thermite charge used on the Meeting Hall wall. Interesting choice there. It means there's only one left to get that main lobby drop down, which I guess makes sense. You only need the one. Dangerous though, if you're trying to get some of the other drops and maybe they've been reinforced. Still, commitment by Vitality, and the reason being is you can see that Blackbeard is going to have a lot easier of a time holding the flank in the later parts of this round as the main lobby take comes out. You can see Vitality has also full coverage yet again, and because of that, you're going to have Alfalma take a couple bullets. Although Zephyr, you know, we were talking about missing our shots earlier. That was a pretty bad situation there for the Capitao. As we come down to the last 50 seconds of this round, still a 5 versus 5, slow play from both squads.
And that's peak Vitality. You just had a Capitao spend 2 minutes watching the doorway into rear tower, waiting for a rotate. Anywho, The push will need to happen. Alfama very weak on health, but as for the rest of the 9 members of this game, they're doing all right. And it's going to have to happen as now Zafir will shoot out one of those smoke bolts, and an asphyxiating bolt will go down to cut off that side of the laundry room. Smoke will stop the push from Vitality at the bottom of the stairs. Bibu looking primed and ready. There is a C4 available from the Valkyrie, possibly from the Bandit too, as the flank currently being held by Spark, but Plant will be going off, not in default, but over by Bins, and I don't think they know. The C4 will miss. Zafir is there to take out Alfama. He finished what he started. Crisco will jump in and dispatch the Capitao, but lose most of his health in the process. Plant successful for Vitality, and they are looking to close this out and take it on match point. Bird will jump up, and with the huge magazine of that SMG-12, get a kill on Dijus before being finished off by the Bandit at K6. Both Rafal as well as Spark on flank watch. That'll leave Bibu designed on site to try and watch for a push. The legs for just a second of Crisco will be seen. Rafal gets the kill. Bibu looking to see if the defuse is going off, and Spark will shred them, but what a round from Vitality as they punish every single person, line them up and knock them down. Vitality will take this one by a score of 6-2. We didn't even need to go the full distance, Michael.
No, certainly we did not. It was a pretty definitive win there from Vitality. At no point, we said this earlier, and I'll say it again, at no point did I ever see anything from Supremacy that told me that they could make a comeback there. Just a distinct inability to win fights, and it seemed like they were, if anything, psyched out for that match.
Yeah, a bit of a disappointing result if you're a fan of Supremacy, who are now still looking similar to Mocket for their first victory, and I believe their first point as well. Not ability to get on the scoreboard. I believe Mocket and Supremacy are the 2 teams that don't have points yet for Europe, if I